Welcome to Have You Read It, the channel where we bring books to life, one summary at a time. Whether you're here for self-help, personal growth, or business inspiration, there's something for everyone. Today we're diving into Rework by Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson of 37 Signals. This book challenges conventional business wisdom, offering a fresh perspective on building, running, and growing a business. It's a practical guide based on their own experiences, not academic theories. They've seen recessions, bubbles burst, and all sorts of economic turmoil, and their company has thrived through it all. So let's jump right in. Rework starts by challenging the notion of the real world as a place where new ideas go to die. Fried and Hansson argue that it's just an excuse for not trying. They use their own company as an example, having succeeded despite being geographically dispersed and defying traditional marketing norms. They operate across multiple cities and continents. They attract millions of customers without salespeople or advertising, and they openly share their secrets to success. The authors also tackle the idea of learning from mistakes. They propose that learning from successes is more valuable. When something succeeds, you can replicate it. They reference a Harvard Business School study that found already successful entrepreneurs have a higher chance of future success than those who failed previously. Success, not failure, is the experience that truly matters. Long-term business planning also gets scrutinized. They argue it's essentially guesswork, advocating for short-term goals and improvisation. Instead of rigid plans, they suggest figuring out the most important tasks for the week and making decisions just before acting. Another traditional business goal, growth, is questioned. They ask why expansion is always the default objective. Why not find the right size and stay there? They encourage listeners to question assumptions about company size and grow slowly. The book criticizes workaholism as unnecessary and unproductive. Working more doesn't mean getting more done. It often leads to burnout, poor solutions, and unnecessary crises. They celebrate efficiency and working smarter, not longer. Fried and Hansson also take issue with the term entrepreneur, suggesting it's exclusionary. They prefer starter, a more accessible term for anyone who creates a new business. Moving on, the authors emphasize the importance of making a difference, of creating something meaningful. They use examples like Craigslist and the Drudge Report, which have made significant impacts with relatively small teams. They advocate for scratching your own itch, solving a problem you personally experience. This makes decision-making easier and more intuitive. They cite examples like James Dyson, Vic Firth, Bill Bowerman, and Mary Kay Wagner, all of whom found success by solving their own problems. This also allows for a more intimate understanding of the product and its value. The authors encourage taking action, stressing that ideas are worthless without execution. They quote Stanley Kubrick's advice to aspiring filmmakers: "Get hold of a camera and some film and make a movie of any kind at all." They believe execution, not the initial idea, is key. They dismiss the no time excuse, suggesting that if something is important enough, you'll make time for it. They encourage starting small, even while keeping your day job. Rework emphasizes the importance of having a strong point of view, of drawing a line in the sand. This attracts dedicated fans and makes decision-making clearer. They use examples like Whole Foods and Vinnie's Sub Shop, which have distinct philosophies that guide their choices. Mission statements are also targeted, described as often being disconnected from reality and ineffective. They use the example of a generic rental car mission statement to illustrate their point. True belief, they say, is more important than written pronouncements. They advise against seeking outside funding, especially early on. It comes with strings attached, like giving up control, focusing on a quick sale instead of long-term growth, and distracting from the core business. The authors encourage starting small and being frugal, emphasizing that you need less than you think. They cite their own company's launch as an example. They distinguish between a startup and a business. Startups, they argue, often ignore the need for profit and sustainability. They advocate for building a real business with a path to profitability from day one. They also advise against building to flip, prioritizing a quick sale over long-term commitment. They suggest focusing on building something great instead of planning an exit strategy. Rework encourages embracing constraints. Limited resources can foster creativity and prevent waste. They use examples like prisoners making weapons, Shakespeare's sonnets, and Southwest Airlines' single aircraft model. They advise building a focused, high-quality product, even if it means cutting features. It's better to have a great half product than a mediocre whole one. They introduce the concept of the epicenter, the core element of your business, and suggest focusing on that first. Everything else is secondary. They use the example of a hot dog stand where the hot dog is the epicenter. They suggest ignoring details early on, focusing on the big picture first. They use the example of architects and Walt Stanchfield's advice to animators. Rework emphasizes the importance of making decisions, even if they're not perfect. Decisions are progress. They encourage swapping "let's think about it" for "let's decide on it." They suggest being a curator, constantly looking for things to remove, simplify, and streamline, using Zingerman's Deli as an example. They advise against throwing more resources at a problem, suggesting that cutting back can be more effective. The authors suggest focusing on what won't change, on timeless principles, rather than chasing trends. They cite Amazon and Japanese automakers as examples. Rework uses the analogy "tone is in your fingers," arguing that tools are less important than skill and execution. They caution against obsessing over equipment instead of what you do with it. They encourage selling byproducts, the unexpected extras that result from making your primary product. They give examples like the lumber industry, their own book Getting Real, Wilco's documentary, and Kingsford charcoal. They advocate for launching as soon as possible, even if the product isn't perfect. You can always iterate and improve later. They discuss their own launch of Basecamp, Camper Shoe Stores, and Crate and Barrel. Moving into productivity, Rework criticizes abstract communication, like reports and documents, which create illusions of agreement. They encourage getting real with tangible examples, citing Alaska Airlines' Airport of the Future and furniture craftsman Sam Maloof. The book suggests regularly questioning the reasons behind your work and whether it's truly useful and adds value. They identify interruption as the enemy of productivity, advocating for long stretches of alone time to focus on meaningful work. They encourage using passive communication tools like email to avoid constant interruptions. Meetings are described as toxic, often wasting time and generating little value. They offer suggestions for making meetings more productive, like setting timers, limiting attendees, and having clear agendas. They promote the good enough approach, prioritizing efficiency and simple solutions, citing the example of political campaign ads. Rework emphasizes the importance of quick wins to maintain momentum and motivation. They advise against being a hero by clinging to tasks that take far longer than anticipated. Sometimes quitting is the best option. They highlight the importance of sleep, arguing that sleep deprivation hinders creativity and morale. The authors point out that people are bad at estimating time, suggesting breaking down large projects into smaller, more manageable chunks. They also recommend creating short to-do lists to maintain focus and motivation. The book advises making small, reversible decisions, citing polar explorer Ben Saunders' approach. Turning to competition, the authors advise against copying, arguing that it prevents true understanding and growth. They suggest decommoditizing your product by injecting your unique personality and values into it. They give examples like Zappos and Polyface Farms. They suggest picking a fight with competitors, positioning yourself as the anti-Ike. They cite examples like Dunkin' Donuts versus Starbucks, Audi versus other luxury car brands, and Apple versus Microsoft. Rework encourages underdoing the competition, focusing on simplicity and solving the core problems, using fixed-gear bicycles and the flip camcorder as examples. They advise against obsessing over competitors, suggesting it's more valuable to focus on your own vision and execution. Addressing evolution, they recommend saying no by default to manage priorities and avoid feature creep, using ing direct as an example. They suggest letting customers outgrow you rather than compromising your product to satisfy a few demanding clients. The book warns against confusing enthusiasm with priority, advising against impulsively chasing every new idea. They encourage building products that are at-home good, those that become more valuable over time, rather than products that initially seem impressive but ultimately disappoint. They suggest not formally tracking customer requests, arguing that the truly important ones will surface repeatedly. Addressing promotion, Rework welcomes obscurity, seeing it as an opportunity to experiment and make mistakes without public scrutiny. They encourage building an audience through sharing valuable information, like their own signal versus noise blog. They advise out-teaching your competition, sharing your knowledge and expertise, using examples like typography.com, Etsy, and Wine Library TV. Rework suggests emulating chefs by sharing your recipes and processes, arguing that transparency builds trust and differentiates you from secretive competitors. They encourage going behind the scenes, offering a look into your business's operations, citing examples like reality shows and factory tours. They promote authenticity and imperfection, referencing the Japanese principle of wabi-sabi. The book criticizes press releases as spam, advocating for personal outreach to journalists. They suggest targeting niche publications and bloggers instead of major media outlets. Rework encourages the drug dealer model, offering free samples or trials to hook customers. They argue that marketing is not a department but an ongoing effort by everyone in the company. They debunk the myth of overnight success, advocating for slow, measured growth and patience. Turning to hiring, the authors advise doing the job yourself first to gain a deeper understanding before hiring someone else. They suggest hiring only when necessary, to alleviate pain, not for pleasure. They advise against hiring great people for jobs that don't exist. They caution against rapid hiring, which can create a disconnected strangers at a cocktail party atmosphere. Rework criticizes resumes as being inaccurate and ineffective, promoting cover letters as a better indicator of a candidate's potential. They suggest prioritizing skills and personality over years of experience. They encourage looking beyond formal education, considering candidates from diverse backgrounds. The book advises hiring managers of one, self-directed individuals who require minimal supervision. They promote hiring great writers, arguing that clear writing reflects clear thinking. They encourage hiring remote employees and taking advantage of global talent pools. They recommend test-driving employees with small projects before making a long-term commitment. Discussing damage control, the authors encourage owning your bad news and communicating proactively with customers. They compare Exxon's Valdez oil spill response to Ashland Oil's more effective approach. They emphasize the importance of speed in customer service. They offer advice on how to apologize sincerely and effectively. Rework suggests putting everyone on the front lines, exposing all employees to customer feedback. They cite Craig Newmark's involvement in Craigslist customer service. They advise against panicking and overreacting to initial negative feedback after making a change. Addressing company culture, the authors argue that you don't create a culture, it happens organically through consistent behavior. They suggest treating decisions as temporary, especially in a rapidly changing environment. They advise against chasing rock stars and focusing on creating a positive work environment that fosters great work from everyone. They promote treating employees like adults, not children, avoiding unnecessary rules and restrictions. Rework encourages sending people home at 5, arguing that a good work-life balance leads to increased efficiency and better work. They advise against creating policies in response to isolated incidents, suggesting that policies should address recurring issues. The book encourages communicating in an authentic voice, avoiding corporate jargon and legalese. They caution against using words like need, must, can't, easy, just, only, and fast, as they can hinder communication and create unnecessary conflict. They advise against overusing ASAP as it creates a false sense of urgency and devalues true priorities. Finally, Rework emphasizes that inspiration is perishable and should be acted upon immediately. So, to wrap up the main takeaways from Rework and create some easy-to-remember heuristics, focus on what matters most: your product, your customers, and your team. Don't be afraid to go against conventional wisdom. Start small, launch quickly, and iterate based on real feedback. Embrace constraints, say no by default, and build an audience. Prioritize progress over perfection, and remember, inspiration is perishable. Act now. Thanks for watching. Have you read it? Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next book dive.